Oh man, it's that time of the year, man. It's the time of the year. It's the time of the year to give you my top 10 albums of 2017. After going through my lists this week, I've kind of realized I've underrated the year 2017. It's been a pretty good year for music. Better than I thought. Before we get started, let me preface this video by saying nothing in this video is objective. I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but these are all personal selections. And if you are upset that one of your selections didn't make it on this list, as I've said in past videos, I could care less, but I still love you. And I hope you're prospering in life. But feel free to make your own top 10 list and put whoever you want to on there. Nobody's stopping you. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But it is time. It is time. I've revised this list a good 12 times, and I think I'm good with it now. I think my picks are not only in terms of what I've listened to, in terms of their like replayability, like what I've listened to consistently, but just overall enjoyment. I think I really enjoyed these. So the first one we're gonna put on this list is Run the Jewels 3. I know it came out very early in 2017, I believe in January, so close to 2016 that it almost missed the list. Actually, wait, did it come out in 2016 or did it come out in 2017? Whenever it came out, it unfortunately flew under the radar because it didn't make it to a lot of people's list, it coming out so late in the year or so early in 2017. So I cannot forget it. It definitely was an album that was very impactful. I think LP and Killer Mike have that same chemistry, that same vibe, that same connection is still there. The aggressiveness with both of them is still there. They haven't fallen off in their subject matter. Instrumentals are very heavy, hip-hop based of course, but still a little bit experimental. LP, amazing as a producer. Killer Mike has that raw emotion as a rapper. They just appear as veterans who work perfectly with one another, and even after their third installment of Run the Jewels, they have not fallen off, and I'm definitely looking forward to the fourth. Coming in at track number 9 is Mr. Joey from Pro Era with his AABA project. Now, of course, on this project, Joey isn't as raw as I would have liked him to be, not as raw as he was on tracks like Big Dusty and Christ Conscious off of the album Before the Money, but on this album, giving a realistic take on the state of America, or basically the perception of America from the black point of view. Joey, being the age that he is, talks about it well enough. I don't think he goes overboard. I don't think he severely misses any topics or misses any subjects as he's discussing them. I definitely think he's got his own way of thinking and he's got a theory. You can tell that theory is apparent on tracks like Rockabye Baby with Schoolboy Q, and the closing track where Joey is saying that, you know, these guys are pretty much trying to take your future away from you and not to give them that opportunity. He comes through with a lot of possibilities, but not necessarily solutions, not trying to tell you what to do and not having the answer and admitting to not having the answer himself. But at the end of the day, it's as if Joey created this project not to have a solution or an answer or anything, but just to let people know that you need to be aware of what's going on around you. And I think this being an album for Joey to let people, you know that you should still be aware of the country you're in, even if you don't have a problem with it or you don't see a problem with it. This is what's going on. This is what's actually happening, and you need to pay attention. Coming in at number 8, we got Brockhampton with their Saturation 2 project. Now, I like Brockhampton, but I did not enjoy Saturation 1 as much as I did 2 and 3. I felt like Saturation 2 amped it up and gave me some more of that G-Funk on tracks like Gummy, Junkie. It definitely came through a lot more confident, a lot more aggressive, had, developed a formula, but didn't necessarily keep that formula for every track on this project, but they definitely had more of a hip-hop feel to them. They had the spirit of hip-hop strongly connected to them on Saturation 2, and that was one of my biggest complaints with Saturation 1, was that I didn't feel it was a hip-hop enough record. They felt like more of a boy band than a rap group, and they do present themselves as a boy band in all of their projects, but with this, it really felt like they were trying to soak up some of the people they felt like they missed on their first project, while still keeping that same eccentric, charismatic energy that they've been toting in their music. The instrumentals still do experiment to some degree, utilizing that bass and a ton of other instruments. I love how we have a group that made more of a hip-hop album that doesn't need to just abuse bass in order to make their songs really, really catchy, and Brockhampton proves that with their Saturation 2 installment. Kendrick Lamar's Damn album. Damn is one of the most controversial albums that has been released in the year 2017, and not because of Kendrick, because of the perception of the album. Me personally, I would put it at number 7 because I felt Kendrick Lamar did such a great job of delivering his story. And while many people are going to argue Good Kid, Mad City represented Kendrick's story in a much more impactful, much more passionate, and much more creative way, I feel like Kendrick Lamar makes this album so much more accessible than albums before. People expected a certain Kendrick Lamar permanently from the To Pimp a Butterfly Kendrick Lamar because they looked at him as this savior, as this person that, you know, needed no help, needed no prayer, needed no guidance. They looked at him as if he had all the answers because he gave such intricate details and his thought process and what he thought should happen within the black community on To Pimp a Butterfly. But with this project, Kendrick Lamar comes through a lot more vulnerable, a lot more insecure, a lot more confused. And for me, as someone who is a fan of his music, seeing him this vulnerable is good, because you don't want your artist to walk around with, and the perception of him to the public be, oh, I'm perfect, you know, I got all the answers. That's not what you want. You want them to display their confusion. You want them to display things that are going on mentally. And I feel majority of these tracks is Kendrick Lamar asking his audience a question and kind of starting the conversation and trying to let you finish it. He's not necessarily trying to give you an answer on this project, which to me makes him come across a lot more humble, funny, and human. Album number 6 on this list is Sampha's Process album. This is a joy and experience that I know for a fact flew under the radar for tons of people. It coming out in January. Again, I'm horrible with album dates. It was 12 months ago. Give me a break. Sampha's vocal expertise shows up so strongly on this project. His emotion filters through his words so effortlessly as he's talking about true love, as he's talking about his memories, his experiences, and it all comes through as if you're in a spaceship that's leaving Earth that's never coming back. It seems so somber and sad, yet so hopeful at the same time. Sampha is a very emotionally expressive. That's one of his biggest highlights to me, is you can tell how he's feeling by the way he's singing. I actually wrote 3 pages of notes for my initial review of this Process album. People don't even know about that. Sampha takes the word artsy to a whole new level on this project. He makes it okay for you to describe an artist's music as good by saying that it's artsy, because that's exactly what he is on this project, is artsy. Album number 5 on this list is JayZ's 444, the first album where we get JayZ discarding himself from himself. We get an album full of tracks referencing JayZ, and we get an album full of tracks referencing Shawn Carter. And JayZ is intentionally drawing a line between the two, sometimes going back to his rap persona and sometimes going back to the man that he is. Very personal album, an unexpected album from JayZ this late in his career. While it's definitely a warm welcome, it was definitely unexpected for me. Hearing him go into heavy details about the scandal with Beyonce and himself, hearing him talk about or give advice to people on the story of OJ, hearing him describe his mother's situation about being gay and not being able to say anything about it. JayZ just comes through a lot more vulnerable with the information that he's giving. He definitely seems to have an answer or a reason for what he's done. I also like the bonus track that was supposed to be added to 444, Atness, where he describes writing a letter to his father and basically saying that I'm going to be there for my children because unfortunately you weren't able to be there for me, but I'm not demonizing you for it, but this is what helped me shape the mentality that I have right now. And I love that he's painting that healthy picture, not to hold resentment against your parents, to understand that they are human just as you are. JayZ, he just does this album in such a classy way to me. Album number 4 on this list is Tyler the Creator's Flower Boy. This album was very impactful, not only for Tyler the Creator's growth, but the perception of him through the eyes of not only his fan base, but his critics at the same time. Because for a long time, people had lost a lot of respect for Tyler the Creator, being a guy who used jokes and satirical subjects as a way to filter through how he really feels about things. While chastising and demonizing other groups and other people, he never actually gave his own mindset and how he felt about things, so he could be criticized seriously. But on this album, Flower Boy, Yeah, he does just that. Now, I know there's heavy speculation about Tyler, the Creator's sexuality on this album. Definitely a reasonable question. Not something that's going to make or break the project, in my opinion, but it's definitely a more sensitive, more emotional, more honest side of Tyler, the Creator that I feel like we've been missing out of projects like Cherry Bomb and Wolf. Although those are pretty good projects, in my opinion, I wouldn't say that they hold up to this. Like, this is Tyler, the Creator's best work. Musically, it's impressive. Lyrically, it's impressive. It's respectable. And I really feel like Tyler, the Creator, has opened up a door for himself. He's opened up the floodgates and allowed his fan base to perceive him as this individual who can be transparent. I think that's one of the things that Tyler, the Creator, learned about this project and about himself while making it, is that he can be transparent and let people know how he truly feels about things. Tracks like Garden Shed and Who Dat Boy just show a softer, more in touch with emotion side of Tyler, the Creator. Album number 3, J.I.D, or J.I.D, The Never Story. One of the things that immediately grabbed me about J.I.D was his story on the Dreamville YouTube channel, where he talks about his college experiences, Carr kind of being one of his best friends for a little bit, being kicked out of college, trying to figure out how he's gonna do things, and then being signed to J. Cole. You know, I just think it's an incredible story for J.I.D, and I think the description, you know, painting himself as the never story, the story that never happens, the story that he's never seen happen, I think that's a beautiful way to describe himself and a beautiful way to describe the area which he came from. Basically saying that this is situations that I'm used to. These are things that never actually happen. You know, where I'm from, people don't necessarily see this side of success. They don't see this dream come true. They don't see their hard work really rewarded. So when you hear the story called The Never Story, it's the story of something that never really happens. I feel like what he's describing himself on this project as is someone who, based off of his experiences, isn't really even supposed to be here. And it makes you that much happier for a guy like this, seeing him be successful, having this album be crazy and extremely entertaining with these flows that constantly switch up, and then these lyrics that constantly keep you mentally invested, even if the instrumental isn't doing it for you. J.I.D is just very acrobatic on this project, from tracks like Never to Ed, Ed and Eddie, R&B cuts like All Bad and Hereditary, to more aggressive, more I'm gonna let you know tracks like 8701. I think the fact that I like J.I.D so much comes from the fact that his voice is so young and raspy, but it's also very energetic. It's not too lazy and laid back. It's not trying so hard to be cool. I think the fact that The Never Story also came at a time where there was really no competition for it. I mean, I know Drake's project, More Like, came out a week after, but the timing for this project couldn't have been more perfect to get you into somebody new. None of the other bigger artists were dropping music at the time, so J.I.D's opportunity, I don't know if it was on purpose or if like the placing of the album was strategic in terms of other albums dropping within that same year or that same time frame, but I think that played a part in it as well. People were looking for something new to listen to at this time, and seeing J.I.D be right there, it's like, why not give this guy a chance? And I was so pleased. He's even got side cuts this year with Earth Gang on Meditate, where he's given some amazing features. Also his own solo track, Hasta Luego, where he just explodes on the track with so many different flows. Yeah, he definitely deserves the spot. At number 2, it's Brockhampton again with Saturation 3. I cannot put all these albums in one spot. They all have their own different vibe. They all have their own different lane. Although they are released from the same group and they're within a trilogy of music, it would be a disservice to them to not acknowledge them. I have to acknowledge them and acknowledge the growth in between projects from Saturation 1, 2, and 3. I feel like Saturation 3 is the project where they got it just right. They tweaked it to the perfect amount, in my opinion. Some people still love Saturation 1 the most. I think they were a lot more clumsily put together on that album. I don't think their chemistry was as strong. I don't think they were as confident on this project. They seem confident in hitting you with song after song of enjoyability. I feel like they perfectly mix elements of hip-hop and boy band culture in one album perfectly, something that I felt lacked heavily on Saturation 1 and on Saturation 2. Even though there are cuts that are a little bit more poppy, a little bit more happy, have a little bit less interesting subject matter, the way they're incorporated into the album, they fit. There are some tracks on Saturation 1 and 2 that just completely have a different vibe and sound from the whole project itself. It's one thing to have a different mood within a track, but to have a completely different sound and make it feel like this track might not even belong on the album is another thing entirely. On Saturation 3, I just feel like they have everything down to a T on this project. The fact that they all fit on this project. I also think this is their most experimental of all the Saturations, where they go out on a creative whim and they still manage to hit the mark. Let me put it to you like this. If Saturation 1 and Saturation 2 had never been released, and Saturation 3 is the first one you heard, I believe Saturation 3 will be the favorite project for most people as opposed to Saturation 1. People were used to Saturation by the time Saturation 3 came out, so hearing some of the cuts on Saturation 3, them being slightly reminiscent of tracks on Saturation 2, having some of that G-Funk, and people being a little desensitized to Brockhampton themselves, I think led to people putting Saturation 3 as the least interesting of all of them. But to me, I think it's the best. And that, in my opinion, is one of the biggest reasons, because people heard Saturation 1 first. That was their exposure to Saturation. If this one would have came before that one and been called Saturation 1, I guarantee you more people would say it was their favorite. I guarantee it. And album number 1 for the year 2017, Rapsody, Laila's Wisdom. One of the most surprising releases of 2017 for me, and understanding that this was a female artist who was not about the catchiness factor, wasn't trying to be there for sex appeal, wasn't trying to look a certain way. Female that has swag, that was classy, somebody you could respect, that didn't go on and on about riding somebody's. Rapsody and Knife Wonder dominate this project, and even with the Kendrick Lamar feature, he still outshines nothing that she does on this project at all. Generally, it would be Rapsody featuring Kendrick Lamar that would be the highlight for this project, but it's so not, and I'm so happy about that. There are tracks where she's going off lyrically, and for people to say that she needs to compete with other female artists within her lane, that is ridiculous to me. She is easily on par with a lot of her male counterparts. I believe Laila's Wisdom is a better project than Damn. I believe Laila's Wisdom is a better project than anything that came out of Joey, anything that came from J. Cole. After more and more listens and people giving me more information, Laila is her grandmother, and this is the wisdom. I mentioned actually in my initial reaction to this album that it felt like a grandmother giving advice to their grandchildren or their grandchild. And the way she moves and the way she describes herself on this project, I don't know why, but there's certain people when they speak, you can tell they lived with their grandparent at one point in their life. I don't know if it's because I lived with my grandparent at one point in my life that I was able to identify with some of the things that she was talking about, or why it was just so easy for me to interpret some of the things that she was saying as a grandmother giving advice to their grandchildren. I think the way she includes her personal life into this album without being boring, over dramatic, or trying to ask their audience for pity is amazing and commendable to me. Some of the album is extremely funky, is very psychedelic. Features are perfectly placed, not oversaturated with them either. Most of them just end up helping the song, especially on tracks like You Should Know with Busta Rhymes, Power with Kendrick Lamar, and Ooh Wee with Anderson .Paak. There are a lot of tracks on here where you can just drift away into it, some of them that are very visceral. One of the bigger points for this project was being how she was never overtaken by her feature selection. Like I said, and I'll go back to it again, one of the biggest points or highlights for this album was seeing a Kendrick Lamar feature and it not be the reason I was most excited for the song, because Kendrick Lamar is an artist that usually takes these songs in his own direction, and more often than not is the highlight or the reason why you would go to some tracks, like Vince Staples on his The Big Fish Theory album. Yeah, right, was a starlight for a lot of people because of Kendrick Lamar, unfortunately, not because of Vince Staples. She makes these features feel like just additions and just little Easter eggs as opposed to being the highlight of a song. Because at the end of the day, you might have a feature that has something next to Rapsody, but you don't care about them. You're only there for Rapsody. All that being said, I believe her flow and delivery is so passionate, so invested, so aggressive at some points, but soft where it needs to be. It just works, man. It just works to me. Definitely deserving of my album of the year. That's gonna wrap it up. It's been Shawn C, man. I hope you enjoyed. If there's something that you wanted to see on this list that didn't make it, let me know what it is in the comment section down below. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and let me know what your top 10 albums of the year 2017 are. I'd definitely like to hear them. Pretty good year for 2017. I'm happy with my picks. I'm happy with Rapsody. Happy with everybody that I put in the top 10 for 2017, and hopefully we can have an amazing year for 2018. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for supporting the channel as always, and I'll see you next time. I'm out. Bass.